It's That Popular Podcast. Mitch Prinstein is a psychology professor at UNC Chapel Hill and the former chief science officer at the American Psychological Association. Aaron Keck is a political scientist and award-winning radio host. Together, they discuss the popular and not so popular quirks of human behavior. Welcome into That Popular Podcast. Now, here's Mitch and Aaron.
Hey, welcome into the podcast. Mitch, how's it going?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I am doing all right.
What have you been doing?
So much. We were talking before we started that I've been on multiple trips. We went to Denver for to see The Offspring, which was super fun. We went to Detroit to visit family. The Offspring is a wild trip because my husband Brad is really, really into pop punk music specifically.
Okay.
Like late 90s, early 2000s pop punk. That was his genre. He latched onto it and he has not left it in 20 plus years.
Wait, so, what other groups? What's pop punk?
Well, you're talking about The Offspring. Mitch, you're talking about Blink 182.
Oh, okay.
Green Day, which I actually is one of my favorite bands, and we haven't actually been to see Green Day. I need to get him to go to that show. Getting into your Fall Out Boys, your Panics at the Discos.
Oh, yeah. So I listen to a lot of these. I didn't know that I was venturing into like a whole new genre by doing that.
Pop punk? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pop punk pop punk kind of starts with Green Day. It's like it's punk music, but it's not like it's much more fun punk music in a way that like the Clash maybe was trying to be a little bit more serious, or Black Flag was trying to be a little bit more angry.
Yeah.
Although the Ramones were doing the same thing, so you know, it's not like brand new to Green Day. But then like this whole genre explodes in like the 90s and 2000s. So we've been to a couple of shows and it's fun.
Is Blink 182, are they the Backstreet Boys version of pop punk? I didn't think of them as punk. They were kind of more like...
That's what it's pop punk.
Yeah, okay.
That's why it's pop punk. Like, it's not punk, but it's got the same, like, tropes, the same three chords.
Got it.
But it's much more, like, mainstream, I guess.
Friendly.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Offspring, so Denver.
I was hanging out at this arena with a whole bunch of people that I probably wouldn't hang out with in high
what
school.
Do you mean?
Actually, no. The people who would go to the Offspring shows in high school are people that I liked a lot in high school and considered myself friends with, but didn't like hang out with them and wouldn't have necessarily like gone to the Offspring show with them in 1995.
Wait, so who is Aaron Keck hanging out with in high school? Like,
tell
me who has the locker next to you? Like, what's the vibe? What table in the cafeteria are you sitting in?
Oh, I didn't sit in the cafeteria. We hung out
behind a dumpster.
No, it wasn't that far. We went upstairs to our history teacher, Mr. Kennedy's office. And this was all of the, I guess you'd say, the D&D folks. Again, I never really played D&D, but I hung out with them. And that's still the case to this day.
So
people who would watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like the Buffy, X-Files, D&D folks, that's who I hung out with in Mr. Kennedy's office.
So at lunchtime in high school, you hung out with a teacher and you talked about D&D. I can say this because I was a nerd, but I'm getting major nerd vibes here.
Yes.
So,
I was always nerd proximal. Like I was very much a nerd.
Yeah.
But like all of the stereotypical nerdy stuff that you think of nerds as being into, like Dungeons and Dragons and sci-fi and fantasy and all that, never really got super into that. I got a lot of it through osmosis, so I can talk to you about Star Trek and I can talk to you about Doctor Who and D&D and all of these things with some degree of intelligence. But I've played D&D a couple of times and never really got into it. My friend had to sit me down and show me a couple of original Star Trek episodes when I was 30. Like, how have you never seen the original series? I'm like, I don't know.
So you're a nerd poser.
I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd groupie is what I am. I like to hang out with the nerds. I'm not on stage with them, but I'm like off to the side lending support. I'm like the Penny Lane in Almost Famous.
But you're very socially skilled, and I also see you as being fluid. Like, were you able to talk with the other other kids in school who are not in the hanging out with the teacher, or was it more of like a shunning? And this is the only group that likes me.
I think I was proximal to a whole bunch of different groups. Like I would leave school and I would go home, and I was an only child, and I would go home and just kind of hang out by myself at home, and I didn't like hang out outside of school with friends on a super regular basis, but I was friends with the nerds, and I was friends with the D&D, Buffy, X-Files, sci-fi folks.
Yep.
My real clique was theater. By the time I got done with high school, like I was really into theater, so I was hanging out with all of those folks in school because we were doing like the school play.
Yeah.
I was not in the band, but I was friends with a lot of band people, which was a really hard clique to break into because bands folks, like, they spend all of their time together rehearsing, and our high school band was serious. So being able to break into that clique, even when not being a member of the band, like one of my best friends was the drum major senior year, and that was an accomplishment for me because the band people knew me and liked me. So I think by the time I got done with high school, and I didn't start out this way, like I was very nerdy, like not super popular when I got into high school, but by the time I got done, thanks to I think debate and theater and just really going all in on public speaking, I'd gotten to the point where I was liked by everyone, but we didn't like hang out.
Yeah.
I was like Bernard in Death of a Salesman, liked, but not well liked.
Did you have like a yearbook most likely to or a class, whatever? Were you one of them?
Oh yeah, big time.
What were you?
Probably most likely to succeed.
Oh,
although we had a really
good
good cohort the year before me and the year after me. We had like a few years of really, really good, smart people. So we just had a kind of a makeshift reunion for a sad reason. One of our high school cohort had passed away suddenly. So we were all kind of gathering together in Michigan for the little bit of a wake kind of thing, because we were having a good time and remembering and sharing drinks and everything, but it was still a memorial. But just like the number of people in the room who were doing really well, like we've got doctors, we've got business owners, and even like people that don't necessarily like have quote unquote high prestige jobs. Like one of my best friends from high school is a bus driver and has been for years, and she's doing great. Like she's got 3 kids, they're fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah.
How big was your school?
1,800 people.
1,800
people.
Oh my God.
And our class was famous for having the largest incoming freshman class and the smallest outgoing senior class.
Oh.
Because I say that we had a really good cohort, and we did, but those were the people who survived high school. Yeah. I think our attrition level was more than 50%. Like we came in with 600 and we left with like 250 graduates. It was not great, but the 250 were really good.
Okay.
How about you? What was your clique?
Yeah, I mean, I was on Long Island, and it was a majority Jewish community. So I grew up not getting that everyone was not Jewish. Like I just thought that was the case,
Right.
And perhaps not coincidentally, it was also not a high school that even had a football team, because how do you make a football team with mostly Jewish kids in school? Like it was not a particularly like athletic centric.
You would have beaten us. We lost 40 games in a row.
I think if we had a football team, they would have been standing on the sidelines like, "Oh, my back." Like, so I don't know. I would have paid to see that game. But and we had no like cheerleaders. We had nothing. But we were 200. And like, well, okay, I'm such a nerd. I know
public
exactly.
school or private school?
It was public school.
Public school,
We had 214. How do I know that? Because I was on the school newspaper and I did a story about our class and whatever. And we had 214 kids, and we had like 95% going to college. No one left high school. And yeah, I actually, very similar to you. Like I thought myself too good to hang out with the Dungeons and Dragons and people. Sorry,
man,
but
okay.
No offense. But
they were good people.
But I was pretty damn nerdy. I mean, also like at the time I don't think I hit 5 feet tall until I was in 11th grade.
Okay.
So I was like the weirdly not yet developing and super short bifocal glasses. So, obviously, a total jock and super cool.
Of course, right. I mean, for a school that was too nerdy to have a football team, I imagine you fit right in.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I was in everything. I was in all the clubs. I was the organizer of all the stuff. I was involved in yearbook and everything. And I actually did, believe it or not, because I'm not the one with the radio voice of the two of us, but I did the morning announcements every day. So I was kind of a little bit of like a very central figure in school, because I like every morning would read all the announcements and talk about all the clubs, and then people would stop me in the halls and ask me questions about stuff.
Again, me being proximal, my best friend did that in high school.
Oh, wow.
Michelle was the announcer. Yeah.
I think though that if we were looking at the research, we would have been in different crowds. So there are two different things in the research when we talk about high school peer relations experiences. And these are all important because they predict what's going to happen to you much, much later in life. So, I mean, it's good to think about for just a second, like, was I the jock? Was I the brain? Was I the nerd? Was I the burnout?
Yep.
So we talk about it in two ways. One is that we talk about cliques, and one is we talk about crowds. Cliques are your group of friends, right? And it's interesting because you might have had like a best friend. Some kids have a different best friend every period of the day, right? Because it's there's like all this drama and whatever. But you have your group, and that's like, think of the nucleus in a way. And then you have like people on the outside of that group that you hang out with. Like, they might not be super tight with someone in the middle, and you can probably think about your own friendships back then and be like, who was my group? Like the ones that if there was hanging out, I was definitely invited every single time.
Yep.
And more like, well, they're kind of a friend of a friend. So then you're kind of on that outer circle a little bit. And there are all these hierarchy dominance pieces that happen within that. Like within your friendship group, there was definitely someone who was more in charge, especially among like groups of mostly guys. Like there's a whole thing with dominance there. But crowds are what we're talking about. That's like these labels of the brains and the nerds. And it's so interesting. First of all, this is mostly a North American phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Any guesses why?
Ooh, since when?
Like
is it like
since, like forever? Like even if
interesting.
Remember, like you've seen Grease, James Dean movies,
yeah,
whatever. Like
so it goes back at least.
Idea of like the greasers or the burnouts or the jocks, like this is a very American thing.
I don't know why.
So this has been really fascinating because there's a lot of research around this stuff around the world. But in America, we don't academically track kids in middle school as early, like in England, let's say, you take like a test in 8th grade and either you head to a university path.
Oh, that's right.
Or more of like a skill and labor kind of path.
Yep.
So you're already pre-sorted.
Yep.
But in America, you're with everyone who lives in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
So this is like our sorting way of like, how do we create little like different...
We sort ourselves instead of being sorted. Which is interesting because one of the criticisms that you hear of elementary school in America is the extent to which that sorting kind of happens on an ad hoc basis. But even so, it's still not the case nearly as much as in Europe. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's really interesting because it's been this way for decades and decades. And then there are some differences across schools, but you always see this. So here's the thing. Adolescence is a time when we are really trying to find our own identities, right? So when we go into high school, suddenly parents are uncool. And while it would be awesome to be just like your parents when you're in 5th grade, that is the worst possible thing you could say when you're in high school. No one is like, guess what? I'm exactly like my parents.
Right.
Everything I wear and believe and say, and like, it's all about differentiating. So these crowds are like identity signals.
Yep.
Like they have costumes, right?
Yep.
They have places you sit in the cafeteria.
The greasers, the pink ladies.
Yeah, I mean, like there are things you wear and there are bands you like and there are places you sit in the cafeteria to basically signal, this is who I am. And it's like a big thing because it's so class oriented in like Europe and elsewhere, and they pre-sort based on that. But we're all together.
Yep.
This is like a very interesting melting pot phenomenon that happens here.
Interesting.
So over the decades, the other interesting thing is we almost always have some of the same crowds. I mean, they've been called different things, but you've always got a jock group.
Yep.
You've always got a popular group.
Yep.
Like the it crowd, you know. You've always got a nerd group.
Yep.
And you've always got like a burnout group. But then depending on where you live, depending on the community, and depending on what decade you're in, there are other groups. We used to have a nonconformist group.
Okay.
They became like the emo group.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of
fair.
like a little bit more like goth. Maybe there's like a crunchy granola version of it with like peace signs.
Right.
And hippie.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's more like black nail polish, like that whole.
Depends on the band or the movie or the TV show that's popular and what they're wearing or what they're like projecting. Yeah.
Is this the Buffy group?
That was definitely the Buffy group. And then I remember the Burnout group, and I remember the like even more nonconformist emo group, which was not the same as the Buffy group. So we had subgenres as well.
That happens, right? So the nerds have subgenres too.
Yep.
There's the really smart but downplays how smart they are and also really socially skilled. And in some groups, some high schools, and this like the name is always specific to the school, but it's a descriptive name, like the smart socials. Like they're kind of they have it all.
Yeah. That kind of was me in high school.
You were a smart social.
I was, By the end, at the beginning, I was nerdy and unsocial, and then I did theater, and it taught me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the just flat out geeks. Like I am, and this was not me, but it sounds like it was not you, but you know that there are those kids that were like, we don't care what's cool, what everyone is talking about, what everyone's doing. In fact, we're almost going out of our way to stand out as being against whatever the norms are and everything.
Yep.
So they'll wear clothes that like, who wears that now? Like, it's so nerdy, but you know, like, so there's that. And then also you have like the jocks and then the jock fans, that they're not kind of like the ones that are playing the sports and best of the sports, but they're kind of jock adjacent.
Right.
You know, so they're like the bleacher kids. And then you've got like skaters, which can also be a whole crowd. So it might seem like, why are people paid to say this in their career? Like, this sounds very, very high school. So it's really interesting. Please tell me you've seen The Breakfast Club.
I have seen The Breakfast Club, yes.
There are Americans who have not seen The Breakfast Club, and I judge them immediately. Like, this is an essential, you must, like, everyone has to see that movie.
Oh,
like,
interesting. I have gone through the list of movies and movie history and tried to identify, like, which movies you absolutely have to see in order to understand America and American culture. And The Breakfast Club is nowhere near this list.
Oh my God. All right, let me prove you wrong. So here's the deal.
You're talking to someone who thinks The Breakfast Club is highly overrated.
Okay.
So.
I mean, it's my generation. It's my thing. I actually went to the high school, not when I was a kid, but I've since, as an adult, gone back to visit the high school where it was set. Like, I love The Breakfast Club. I was there for the talk, but
I got turned off by the ending, where it's like this whole 90 minutes about how we're like transcending our social positions, and then the nerd ends up just doing everyone's work for them.
Yeah.
While everyone walks away ostensibly happy. It's like, okay, you've just undercut your whole message,
You sympathized with the nerd in the story.
Of course. Well, I sympathize with the nerd who gets like all the work dumped on him at the end, while like freaking Judd Nelson like walks away with his fist in the air and does absolutely nothing at all.
Yeah, and is now dating the most popular girl
exactly,
in school.
right? Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Oh, we should have said a spoiler alert. Wow. So
I think we've all seen Judd Nelson with his fist in the air.
So if you remember the scene, which was many of the scenes where the principal comes in and is looking at them sitting in the library, there's actually a research article, believe it or not, in the psychological science literature that talks about crowds and talks about, it's this whole complicated statistical concept, but it's called social distance. And it basically talks about where there are similarities and differences across the crowds in high school. And literally, when I teach class and we cover this, I superimpose the graph onto that scene of sitting in the library, and it is the exact same. That movie does such a good job. And the reason why is because if you think about the crowds that we all had in our American high schools, they vary on two dimensions. So, okay, now I'm going to be a total nerd and ask you to imagine a graph.
Right.
And the graph is going to have on one axis adult values.
Okay.
And the other is going to have peer values.
Okay.
So what's cool, what do adults like and care about and really think is important? And then what do peers, kids your own age, think is valuable and important, you know? And you can plot each of these crowds on there. So let me walk you through it. Like, the burnouts are low.
Right.
On pretty much both. Right. They're not doing what parents want them to do at all, because they're probably doing illegal stuff, maybe lots of drug taking, something like that. But they're also breaking rules and kind of being pretty anti whatever is considered cool.
These are the freaks and geeks.
These are the freaks and
Yes.
Also,
this is Lindsay Weir. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay. The nerds. They are super high on adult values. They are every parent's dream because they are getting great grades. They're not susceptible to everybody, you know, all the cool trends. But they are very low on the peer values, right? So they are not paying any attention to what you're supposed to wear, what music you're supposed to listen to, or what shows you're supposed to like. And what's interesting about this is that when people talk about trying to switch crowds, this is the way that you have to do it. You have to plot where you are on this kind of adult values and the peer values, and recognize that, like, the sweet spot where the populars are, right? Because they're kind of doing it perfectly in the way, if you think about this graph, they're super high on peer values.
Right.
But they're not so low on adult values.
But they're not all the way up to the top. They're like, they're middling on adult values,
really
right?
Middle for adult, but they're kind of super high on peer values.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So with your kid, or like with a kid that you're seeing that's struggling in high school, that's kind of the question is like, where would you plot yourself on the peer values and the adult values? And you're kind of then answering where you stand in the high school hierarchy.
Interesting.
And it's really kind of an interesting way to rethink your high school in a way.
Yeah.
Is like, where did I land on those axes and everything? And why did that make me more likely to engage in these behaviors or like those bands or hang out with those kids? Because it all comes down to that. And it's really interesting. There's this research study that was done looking at all the high achieving kids. And they found that high achieving kids used one of two styles. And that totally was related to their popularity. The ones that were like, yeah, I studied really hard and I was really caring about getting a high 90s on this, they're nerds.
Right.
They end up not doing well. But kids that scored just as high or maybe higher, they end up downplaying it, be like, oh yeah, I don't know, I kind of blew it off. I don't care. What did I get? Whatever. Yep. What difference does it make?
Yeah.
Totally fronting. Like that's not, they actually do care, of course. And of course they studied. But they're figuring out how to make it sound like they're not high on adult values.
Oh my God. I have a very distinct memory of, and again, my high school journey was 9th grade, really cared, really like ostentatiously cared about it and wasn't super popular. And then like gradually, still very smart, still getting the good grades and everything, but like gradually moving to caring less. And I remember there was one moment in Mr. Kennedy's history class, and this was Tiffany Holcomb, who was not in the clique. She was just like in class one day. And we were talking, this was junior year. We were taking AP calculus and it was the end of the year. We had just taken the exam. And Tiffany, who was very smart, but not like AP calculus junior year smart, but was still in like the advanced classes, was like, oh, what do you take after calculus? And I like wheeled around because I was sitting in front of her and I said, you take a break. And I think I won her over with that one. Yeah. Because it's like, I'm done with math after this. Yeah. Like, I'm good at it. I really don't need it.
Advanced trigonometry. Like, it would be like, okay, nerd. But very.
Now we're going to learn about backwards triangles. Like, I don't even care. Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting and it's so weird because that's so American.
Yeah.
This is not the case. I mean, my friends who are from overseas and they're in a university track as of like 12 years old, it's like you are going to a university and you are in school only with others. There's not that same level of downplaying your care about that because this whole adult values, peer values probably is varying instead on like social class.
Yeah.
Right. And there's just a different thing. So it's so interesting. Like the community you grow up in, and in this case, the country you grow up in, like really changes. It sets the structure for popularity. It sets the structure for how you talk about and think about your whole adolescence in a way, who you hang out with. If you think about like the day you got to your freshman dorm in college, before you had learned what college was like, and to some extent, fraternities still reify this whole crowd system, but how much did that play a role in like who you hung out with the first week of college? Just based on like what they were wearing and what groups they liked and what poster they put up in their dorm room. And that immediately starts signaling like, this is who I am. This is the crowd I was in. This is what's cool or not. And all of that could be totally different if you just were born in a different country.
That's fascinating. It's also interesting, and we got to wrap up, but it's interesting too, because I think for the last 20 years, when we think about cliques in high school or like what category do you fall into, we're doing it in a way and using categories that are very, very, very British. Are you a Hufflepuff? Are you a Ravenclaw?
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And like we have these conversations like, I'm definitely a Ravenclaw. My husband is definitely a Slytherin. We get along somehow. But like these are the categories.
It's just amazing because this sets up the way that we like the template we use to evaluate people, whether we believe it or not, for the rest of our lives. So now, decades later, you walk into a concert and you walk around, you're like, I think I'm hanging out with the crowd. This wasn't the table I sat at like when I was in high school, and now I'm suddenly at that table.
Why was I not at this table before? These guys are fun. The music's great.
Yeah.
This has been That Popular Podcast. Find all our episodes on thatpopularpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.